Anis Masunda. I'm presenting a topic on behaviorism and cognitive psychology. Question number 10 of the program ACG, Access to Higher Education Diploma in Nursing. A well-known psychological theory called behaviorism focuses at how the environment impacts how individuals behave. Psychologists John B. Watson and B.F. Skinner suggested in the early 1900s that psychology should focus on acts that can be seen and measured instead of mental processes that can't be seen or qualified. Agreeing to behaviorism, people learn how to do things. According to behaviorism, humans learn new behaviors via operant conditioning or social learning theory. Operant conditioning says that what occurs has an effect on how people act. Punishment makes a behavior less likely to happen again, whereas incentives, that is positive reinforcement, and the lack of unpleasant stimuli, that is negative reinforcement, makes it more likely to happen again. People and animals learn what behaviors are good and what aren't by trying things out and making errors. Albert Bandura came up with a notion of social learning theory, which claims that people may learn new things by watching over people and what occurs to them. People may learn new skills, habits, and behaviors by watching role models instead of trying things out and failing. The behaviorist approach puts a lot of emphasis on how the environment affects how people learn and do things. Behaviorists don't care about what's going on in the mind. They only care about behavior and learning that can be observed and quantified. Behaviorism says that psychology should look at the actions that can be seen and measured instead of mental processes. According to behaviorists, learning happens via classical and operant conditioning, and all behaviors are caused by things in the environment. John Watson wrote a summary of the theories of behavioral psychology. Behavioral psychology looks at actions, not thoughts. Behaviorists emphasize measure, nurture, and believe that humans adopt behaviors from their surroundings. Animal experiments may help explain how human behavior, since animals and humans learn similarly. According to its goal and scientific technique, the behavioral approach uses controlled laboratory testings. Behaviorism was largely inspired by the classical conditioning research by Ivan Pavlov. In the psychological experiment by Pavlov, dogs were conditioned to associate a bell with food. Dogs originally started drooling after they ate. Pavlov noticed that dogs were starting to drool simply by hearing the bell and not even receiving food. Pavlov's discovery of learning in digestion in dogs led to the learnings as a topic of research as its own right and range of conditioning therapies. For his first experiment, Pavlov meshed food with the neutral stimulus like a bell. It demonstrated how a neutral signal could come to elicit a response once it had been associated with a stimulus that already produced that response, such as salivation when food is placed in the tongue. This intricate experiment was demonstrating classical conditioning, a cognitive mechanism that also influences the behavior of animals and humans. Pavlov's research is built on good old-fashioned rigorous methodical science. In practical terms, Pavlov's findings have been used to clarify phobias in other conditioned behaviors. Pavlov's studies demonstrate that a neutral stimulus can evoke an aversive or fearful feeling. This information has led a significant impact on the treatment of programs that alter maladaptive behavior. We must also note that Pavlov uses the animal subjects and its other limitations, of course. His work with dogs has often been used to help explain human behavior, yet it is difficult to translate findings from animals to humans within psychology. Classical conditioning can only practically account for the complexities of human behavior, which is shaped by cognitive, social, and emotional influences. MacLeod tells us overall classical conditioning hardly revolutionized behaviorism. In 1920, psychologist John B. Watson performed a very controversial research experiment at Johns Hopkins University, which involved a little boy named Albert as his subject in the Little Albert experiment. Watson and his assistant Rosa Reiner successfully demonstrated that emotional reactions could be classically conditioned in people, a finding that put first behaviorism and then applied behavior analysis on the psychological map. Researchers conditioned a 9-month-old little Albert to fear a white rat by pairing a rat with a loud jarring noise. The Little Albert experiment is a well-known experiment, but the study would not be considered ethical today. The study clearly supported the hypothesis put forward by Watson and Reiner that classical conditioning could cause a fear response. Watson and Reiner taught a little Albert baby to fear the rodent by pairing a white rat with a loud noise, scary noise. The study, however, is being slammed for its ethical implications, inflicting pain and suffering on a 9-year-old with absolutely no justification of scientific or legal merit due to the fact that there is actually interference with health of the child. Both the failure to obtain informed consent and the risk of ongoing psychological harm to the child breaches contemporary ethical norms. The methodology has also been criticized because of the fact that the experiment had only one subject, the subjective judgment regarding the feelings of the baby, and the many intervening variables. Several experts questioned whether classical conditioning was really responsible for the panic reaction. Reinterpretations of the original data indicate that the evidence in this study for classical conditioning is weaker than has been previously suggested. One of the behaviorist theory's central principles is observational learning. That is the idea that people can learn both new skills and knowledge by observing others and imitating their behaviors. Psychologists such as Albert Bandura have used this underlying principle to provide training in integrating diversity within education institutions and workplace. Observational learning is improved by positive role models. Teachers, business executives, and other leaders have the power of being role models and motivating the citizenry to have inclusive attitudes and practices. This works because what you learn from in the society is as well known that people learn from the society. Academically sound, visibly inclusive behaviors can set a societal predicament that accepts diversity and inclusion, in turn informing the beliefs of individuals and groups. Workplace and organizational issues, positive reinforcement and rewards amongst employees. Behaviorism's operant conditioning implies that recognizing and rewarding positive behavior can stimulate a sense of appreciation, involvement, and motivation in workers, and as such is likely to have more beneficial consequences by motivating workers to engage in such behavior. Recognition and incentives at workplace can, in various forms, employees of the month, social media recognition, gifts, as well as extra time off. It creates an environment where the employees are valued for their inputs, and it increases job satisfaction and therefore employee retention. Awards and rewards can help motivate your employees by reinforcing good behavior. Acknowledgement and incentivizing may be of help, but causes for low morale, motivation, and productivity of employees would not be solved and fixed by recognizing and rewarding. Cognitive psychology looks at the mental processes that cause people to act in certain ways. It looks at how we see things, pay attention, remember things, learn, solve problems, and make decisions. Unlike the behaviorist approach, while it emphasizes external inputs, this perspective emphasizes interior cognitive processes. Cognitive psychology studies information processing, perception, environmental interpretation, memory, encoding, and retrieval. The discipline studies the mechanics and underlying principles of human cognitive functions, which behaviorists consider unobservable and unworthy of scientific study. According to Izisek and Kine in 2015, perception is crucial to cognitive psychology. Bottom-up and top-down cognitive process affects our environmental understanding. Izisek and Kine 2015 also purports that optical illusion occur when sensory inputs and cognitive processes mislead us. Cognitive psychology is founded by Nazar's 1967 idea that the mind is computer-like information processing mechanism. Cognitive psychology believes that experimental methods may study mental processes that affect behavior. Experimental methods may study perception, attention, memory, and problem solving, according to the cognitive psychologists. Unlike behaviorism, which focuses on obvious environmental factors, according to cognitive psychology, people actively analyze inputs, store material, and retrieve it as needed. Internal mental processes influence behavior. Cognitive psychology also believes that our schema's structured collection of information influence how we perceive, comprehend, and respond to our environment. Cognitive psychology has helped understand human cognition, perception, and behavior by understanding the mind as an information processing system. Jean Piaget, a Swiss psychologist, was one of the original researchers who studied early childhood brain formation, developed a theory of cognitive development in which he proposed that children move through 4 different stages of mental development. According to his theory of cognitive development, young children go through stages of development to gain a knowledge of the world: sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete operational, and formal operations. Note, Piaget's theory was revolutionary for it. It proposed that children needed to be active participants in their own learning, rather than being passive recipients in other people's who did all the thinking and explaining for the children. His research approach was predominantly qualitative and based on observation of his own children and their friends. The methodological decision has led to some constraints on the reproductivity and generalizability of the findings. His socio-cultural hypothesis of cognitive development stresses how social interaction and cultural instruments affect cognition. According to Vygotsky, 1978, higher cognition processes are created via social interactions and subsequently internalized. Famous Soviet psychologist Lev Vygotsky created this socio-cultural theory of cognitive development. This theory emphasizes the impact of social interactions and cultural instruments on cognition. Vygotsky's theory emphasizes social contact. The better informed are the other, the zone of proximal development, scaffolding, internalization, and language. Unlike Piaget, he believed the higher cognition processes originate from social interactions before being assimilated. The use of scaffolding to help pupils to go from one level of understanding to the next is a major benefit of Vygotsky's theory of education. A lot of people who are sad and nervous get help from cognitive behavior therapy, that is CBT, which is based on cognitive psychology. This method finds and changes thoughts and ideas that don't serve you and make you feel bad. Psychodynamic theory seeks to explain how unconscious processes and early events impact ideas, emotions, and behaviors. Psychodynamic theory uses free association, interpretation, and transference analysis to treat unconscious conflicts and unsolved difficulties. Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, Melanie Klein, and Anna Freud influenced psychodynamic theory as a speech treatment. People talk to a skilled professional to solve their problems in this therapy method. The good thing about psychodynamic treatment is that it looks at the whole person and how events of the past affect their thoughts, findings, and actions. Since the treatment gets to the root of the problem instead of just treating the symptoms, it may lead to changes that last. Cognitive psychology has been utilized to aid in making choices and solving problems in diversity and inclusion. Cognitive mistakes and heresies may impact how individuals make decisions and lead to bias and stereotypes. Some people have said that cognitive psychology is bad because it primarily looks at how social and cultural variables affect behavior, and because the procedures used in the test may not be verified realistic. Persons have prejudices and attitudes about their persons or groups that they don't even know they have. Their experiences, education, background affects these prejudices and attitudes. In professional context, bias cognitive psychology can help improve workplace health and productivity by addressing issues like burnout and job satisfaction. Burnout is as a result of excessive stress can negatively impact employees in performance and productivity. Job satisfaction can also impact motivation, participation, and company performance. Effective business learning and development programs require careful planning to teach new skills without overwhelming employees. Training programs can enhance individual and team performance, productivity, and specialized skills. Lectures on time management and goal planning can teach staff how to use specific tools of software. Effective training programs can increase employee involvement, motivation, and productivity, benefiting the organization. However, they may not address organizational issues like poor leadership or weak structures. Training programs should be part of the larger strategy that considers organizational level factors and aligns with the company's long-term objectives. Cognitive psychology and well-designed training programs are essential for addressing problems at work and organizations such as employee motivation, leadership, teamwork, and work-life balance. Both behaviorism and cognitive psychology believe in nature versus nature. In both cases, the importance of environmental variables, nature, in the form of behavior emphasis. Both points of view accept the impact that one's prior experiences have on one's actions, which is at least somewhat consistent with the determinist viewpoint. Experiments and observations are examples of empirical scientific research procedures that are used extensively in both of these experiments. Behaviorism typically leans towards the influence of upbringing while minimizing the significance of inherent characteristics, while cognitive psychology recognizes the reciprocal influence of both genetic and environmental factors on behavior. Behaviorism are more inclined to be hard determinists, prioritizing the examination of visible actions rather than internal cognitive processes. Whereas cognitive psychology, they are more inclined to be soft determinists, acknowledging the influence of both internal and environmental influence on behavior. Behaviorism typically adopts a reductionist approach, analyzing behavior by breaking it down into smaller stimulus-response relationships, whereas cognitive psychology adopts a comprehensive perspective, seeing the mind as an intricate mechanism. Behaviorism conducts controlled studies to influence environmental cues and detect subsequent changes in behavior. Direct observation of explicit quantifiable actions concentrates on numerical statistics such as reaction times and mistake rates, whereas cognitive psychology conducts controlled studies to empirically evaluate ideas of cognitive processes. Observation, questionnaires, interviews, and think aloud procedures are used to gather both quantitative data such as response times and accuracy, and qualitative data such as verbal and response and eye contact.